So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a magic wand. I have selected the woods that I'm going to use. I've got like a collection of sticks that are the 9 sacred woods. Now I'll talk about those a little bit. There's oak and holly. Holly and the oak are the green man. So when you see the green man, he has oak leaves or he has holly leaves, and they fight each other. So in the winter, the Holly King rules, and then he will fight with the Holly King at winter solstice and summer solstice, and then they will swap. So the Holly King slays the Oak King at midsummer and then takes rule, and then at winter the Oak King slays the Holly King and will rule for that half of the year. So we've just swapped over because it was recently the summer solstice. Holly King is now ruling. So the holly and the oak are, you know, kind of old staple mythology woods, and obviously we know that they're strong, and like the holly's there to make us reflect. So if you walk through a forest where there's holly, it's evergreen, so it's always there. So it's about always being there and being eternal, living eternally. So it's often associated with Christ, the crown of thorns, and the blood, the berries being his blood. But also when you see the light hit a holly tree, it really reflects like it's water. It looks like it's wet. So it's about reflecting and thinking and considering. And it used to be used to protect animals. So it used to be used as like a hedgerow, to stop people from being able to steal animals. But also the berries are great for the birds, and the leaves are toxic for humans, but for animals they're like echinacea, like they're a really wonderful herbal remedy. And cows and horses and goats and things will naturally just eat holly as a way of protecting themselves. And holly leaves are only spiky once they've been eaten. So a tree that's not had any plant kind of go for it will have smooth leaves, and it's only once it's been nibbled by an animal that it will start to grow spikes. So it's also about protection, and but only when necessary. So like not being over violent, but like, you know, only doing what the force that's needed. So that's everything that you can learn from the holly. The oak is the British oak. You know, it's like the heart of England. You know, and it's like whenever you think of like Robin Hood or someone like that, they'll always be living under an oak tree. Like the oak represents the essence of this land, and so it's kind of like our heart tree. There's holly and oak, then there's hazel, which grows dead straight, so that was always coppice, so that was wonderful for using for wands and staffs. So this was a druid wood that was used for these things, as was rowan, because again that grows long and straight, and they are sacred trees. Then there's the weeping willow, with which you can make baskets, and it's called weeping willow because it looks like it's weeping, but also the impact that it has to work with it makes you very emotional. It brings out the emotions, so there's some sort of there's an emotional connection with willow as well. Then there's yew, which is the magic tree that you'll find in all the churchyards around the UK, and it's the only living thing that could live forever. Technically it could live forever, and we have trees in the UK that are like over 2,000 years old, and it grows from the inside out, so it keeps growing out. So it's about rebirth and reincarnation, because it keeps, so normally a tree would grow with rings outwardly like that, the yew tree goes in and out, so it could keep going. There's no reason for it to ever stop. They do sometimes die, but what's interesting is the yew trees that you find in the churchyards are all older than the churchyards. So the churches were built by the yew tree. The yew tree wasn't planted in the churchyard. So they were sacred trees and sacred locations before the church was built there. Then you also have Alder, which has both masculine and feminine reproductive organs on the same tree. So that's about like the fool and that betwixt the two. Elder, which is Mama Elder, and she heals us. So elderflowers and elderberries are good for you and will stop you from getting ill, and a really useful medicine for what's happening in the world at the moment, coronavirus. You shouldn't burn elder, it's toxic wood. It will quite a few of them are toxic, but when you do have a sacred fire, you burn them. But Mama Elder, you don't burn. She's the one that you don't. And then we also have birch. Now, birch is a pioneering plant. And so whenever there's been a forest fire, it'll be the first trees that you see to grow. And I mean, they look magical. They look like fairy trees and are beautiful. But they also are about new beginnings. The hawthorn is about boundaries, being strong in yourself. Like, it's used often as the wizards, like as and witches wands. It's one of the 9 sacred trees, and it's the bound, like the gatekeeper between the fairy world and this world. So these are the woods. So I collected bits of all of these, but I have one here that I have selected to use for the wand that I'm making today. And I'm making this one for my goddaughter Nell, who is a beautiful being and has had to go through quite a lot of change. They were living in Ethiopia until recently, and then with everything that's been going on, got sent back to the UK, and I've had to leave their lives behind, so she's had quite a lot of disruption. So this is for you now. So here is your lovely wand, and it's yew tree, and it's extremely strong. It's really strong wood, and it's what longbows used to be made out of, because it's so strong you can really pull back on it. I mean, it's crazy. It feels so strong. So you've got a nice strong wand here. What we're going to do is I'm going to put some clay around it. Now I'm going to use Milliput, this stuff. So it's epoxy, what is it called? Epoxy resin? Is that what they're called? Where you mix the 2 things together and then it makes the glue. So I'm going to mix them together now. Now what I want to do before that is, because once I start using the clay, my fingers are going to go terracotta. I'm going to pull a rune, because I'm going to inscribe a rune on the wand, and I'll also do some sigil work, some sigil magic as well. This is for Nell, so this is a message from the goddess to Nell for the rune for the wand. So this is Hagelaz, the rune, and it represents hail. And with hail, it feels like it's hurting, but actually it's just melted water. So the lesson of Hagelaz is that whatever is happening, if ever anything feels difficult, like you're going through difficult times, is to remember it will not last. That you can deal with this, and it is just water. It just feels painful at the moment, but at some point it will melt and will become water again. So it also is a strong rune to have on a wand. It's like, it means, you know, you don't mess around with hail. So I'm going to inscribe the rune Hagelaz into this candle, my trusty sword, and I'm going to burn that while we're doing the spell, and I'll let it burn all the way down, and that will part of the process of imbibing this with magic. Now, if you don't have a set of runes, and you're not now, then you can also use this rune, and you just inscribe it into a tea light candle, anything you want. And then you have the rune inscribed into the candle, and then you light it and you let that burn all the way down. And once that's burnt all the way down, then your wand's spell magic has been completed. So now I'm going to get the clay out. Now the thing is with this clay is it's actually quite hard to work with. I went into ceremony yesterday under the full moon to make my wand, because I realised also I needed to have, like, and here's one I made earlier, like Blue Peter, because it takes 2 hours for it to dry. But what I found with working with it is it's quite quite difficult to work with because it kind of comes apart quite easily. You know, like it will crack apart from each other, from itself. So, but it does become really nice and hard. So I sort of think I prefer Bimo personally, but I do like the finish of this because it has a nice, it looks like leather. So we can make it look like you've got a leather piece on it. So you mix the two together. So you've got these two different bits of clay, and then you break off equal parts and squish them together until there's no, like it's become one. You can't see that there's any streaks of the different types of clay in there. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make this into a long wiggly worm and wrap it round the handle, so then it will look a bit like a leathery handle. I'm going to use that for something else. I'm going to set some crystals into it as well, because I think my lovely Nell would like some crystals. So I'll wrap that around. And it's always good to work with the, work with the wood. Like knots and things are beautiful, it's like keep them visible. With my practical one, I quite like the tip just being where it is, because I use this for like poking the charcoal, for example, to encourage the incense to burn. So like this for me is like a practical wand. Like I will use this for poking fires and doing things. But if you have like for Nell, I think she'd probably like a crystal in the end of it, so you can put a thing on the end that will be like a little bit of a magical thing on the end. I think it's important for the crystal and the wood to be touching. Oh yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that with the crystals on Mama Earth, you don't get crystals falling from the sky. To get a crystal, you have to dig into Mother Earth and basically like take from her, and most crystals are not ethically sourced. They're dug in places like Africa where people are not being paid properly. In fact, half of them are probably not even getting a choice about whether they are doing this job or not, and they're not safe conditions. So this whole kind of hippie thing of having crystals, it's something to become aware of, that actually there is no like nice way of getting crystals really, and there are mines now that ethically source them. So if you're able to do your research and find out whether yours are ethically sourced, that's a good thing to do. But even so, it's pretty questionable really how ethical it is to be continually taking things out of the ground. I will make it look gold, so I'm going to put some of this stuff on it, which is called Rough and Buff. Where is it? There we go. Rub and Buff. So this makes things look like they're gold. And in Blue Peter fashion, here's one I made earlier. Now this has been sat on my altar since yesterday when I made it under the full moon. I'm now going to place this on the altar. Anything that gets placed on an altar becomes altered, and this it means that you're imbibing it with magic. I've just thought actually what I'm going to do before I put this on there is I'm going to engrave the rune Hazel into the wand. So if she's holding it like that, I want that to be visible for her looking at it. The H Hazel. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. So now I will place that on the altar, and like I say, anything that goes on the altar becomes altered. So that's going to be receiving the magical power. The candle is also burning down in honour of it. And here is one I made earlier, Blue Peter fashion. So I encrusted the end of this with crystals and created like a kind of leathery handle bit at the end and a crystal at the end. And so now I'm going to, I actually quite like it like that, because it kind of goes with the colour of the wood, and it feels really good. It dries really nicely, this stuff. It's quite hard to work with, but it dries nicely. So I'm going to add a bit, I'll start on the end here where the crystals are. Oh yeah, you've got to pop it open. Yeah, cool. So it looks like gold, sort of gold paint. Cool. And then take some tissue and just pop it on. Oh right, cool. And it looks like you don't need very much. Great. Yeah, you don't need very much. So yeah, little goes a long way. Awesome. Yeah, this is good stuff. Look, so I've got a lovely golden finish now with the crystals poking through. That looks really good. Brilliant. So I like to ask the universe in pretty much all instances about what it wants from this. So you might know, and that's fine, you might know what you want your wand to be, like what power you want it to have. Like this is for me, it's got the magic of the sisterhood yew tree, and the yew tree is about transformation, and transformation is my rune. So I've got this rune here which is Ing, and it was the first rune I ever pulled, and Ing is masculine fertility energy, so it's like the inspiration of ideas, but it's the sperm, it's the seed. So that's all in this wand, and it's good to say all of this out loud while I'm holding it because I'm imbibing it with that power. So I guess I mean, for me actually, I think the sigil for this would be the infinity sign. Normally I'd write a spell and I would hide the spell within the circle, but actually I think what I should have is a circle with the infinity sign in it as my symbol for this. I'm going to go over it with the gold pen just to blend that in with gold. So, and that looks great. I mean, that I'm really pleased with that. That's a complete one. We've got a gold and black yin yang symbol on there, which looks great. Actually, that works really well on the clay, so that's useful to know that marker pens work really well on this clay. So there we go. So this is wet still, and I'm gonna let this dry. But this is looking good. That's a nice wand. I'm really pleased with this. The gold works really well. That's great. So I'm gonna put these down on the altar, and I'm going to then bless them with the elements. But here we have the salt, which represents the earth, and I take each of the ones, in fact actually I can throw it on them, but I won't be able to do it with the flames. Here we go. So I'm going to touch them with salt, the earth, so I imbibe them with the power of the physical world and all the strength to physically make difference in the world, the power and the magic of our guardians of the north. And then it's east, which is air. And for this I'm going to use the prayer bowl, and so I will I've imbibed them with the power of the east, and the east and the communication, so the ability to transform people's opinions and ideas through your words, and for your words to have power and strength. And then the south, I'm going to use the prayer. This is the spell candle, it's getting quite low. And I'm going to run the wands through the candle. I'm using it on my one as well now, so that means you've filled my wand with your magic too. And this is giving it the magic of fire, of action, of masculine energy, of the ability to make change through your actions, physically doing things in the world. You have the power to physically make a difference. And then this moon water, which I blessed under the full moon last night, and it was Glastonbury Tor spring water, so this is really magical water, and it's in my beautiful bowl that my friend Ro gave me again. She gives me all the best things. And here I will sprinkle that over the wand, both the wands. This is the power of the inner world, which is really where the magic resides. The power of the unseen, hidden depths of the magical inner world. And I will leave them now on the altar. I'll leave this one here to dry and let this set, and then I will buff this with the gold as well. And so we are complete. Starting in the north. Pull all the energy of the ball down into the sword. Like Athame. So the circle is now open, but never broken. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again.